There is a notebook open beside your bed right now, or maybe it was open an hour ago, and you closed it quietly before turning off the light. 3 lines, 3 unfinished plans. The first one says you would call someone back, the second says you would finish something you promised, and the third is so short it barely counts as a sentence. You meant to cross them off. Instead, you left them there, half-formed, as if writing the words down would be enough to make them happen. But tonight they sit like small debts, and you feel the weight of them even though no one else knows they exist. This is the strange territory of moving on without closure. Not the dramatic kind where someone leaves and slams a door. The quieter kind, where nothing was ever said, nothing was ever finished, and you are left holding the blank space where an answer should have been. Let me tell you about a colleague of mine. Not a student this time, but someone who worked in the same department, someone I used to see in the hallway between lectures. She was the sort of person who kept everything tidy, her office organized, her calendar color-coded, her sentences polite and clear. One spring she began to look tired. Not in the way people do after a bad night, but in the way people do when they are carrying something heavy and cannot set it down. One afternoon she came to my office and sat in the chair by the window without asking if I had time. She said she had ended a friendship 6 months earlier, not because of a fight, but because the other person had simply stopped responding. No explanation, no final conversation, just silence. She had sent one message, then another, then decided to stop. And now, half a year later, she still found herself writing replies in her head. She would wake up at 3 in the morning with a sentence she wanted to say, or she would see something that reminded her of the person and feel a small flare of anger or sadness or confusion. She said the hardest part was not knowing what she had done wrong. She said it felt like failing a test she had never been allowed to take. I asked her what she thought closure would look like if she could have it. She paused for a long time. Then she said she wanted to know why. She wanted the other person to say, "This is what happened, this is what you did, this is why I left." She wanted the story to make sense. And I understood that, because most of us do. We believe that if we could only hear the reason, we could fix it, or forgive it, or file it away neatly and move on. But the old wisdom, the kind that comes up again and again in Stoic thought, offers a different view. It suggests that closure is not something someone else gives you. It is something you build yourself, quietly, without permission, in the middle of the silence. Epictetus used to say that some things are up to us and some things are not, and the line between them is where most of our suffering begins. You cannot control whether someone explains themselves. You cannot control whether they apologize, or return, or even think of you at all. But you can control what you do with the empty space they left behind. You can control whether you spend the next 6 months writing invisible letters in your mind, or whether you begin, slowly, to put the pen down. That is not cold advice. It is not about pretending you do not care. It is about recognizing that waiting for someone else to finish your story is a kind of imprisonment, and you are the one holding the key. My colleague sat with that idea for a while. Then she said, "But what if I never understand what happened?" And I said, "What if understanding is not the same as closure? What if closure is just the decision to stop asking the question?" She looked at me as though I had said something cruel, but I had not. I was offering her the only door that was actually open. Because the truth is, you can spend years trying to solve a silence, and it will never speak. You can rehearse the conversation, imagine the apology, write the letter you will never send, and none of it will change the fact that the other person has already moved on, or chosen not to engage, or simply does not have the answer you want. The only thing that changes is how much of your life you give to the waiting. So let us make this smaller and more specific. Tonight, if you are lying here thinking about someone who never gave you an ending, I want you to notice what you are actually doing with your attention. You are probably replaying moments, looking for clues, wondering what you missed. You are probably imagining what you would say if you had the chance. And underneath all of that, you are probably hoping that if you think about it long enough, the knot will untangle itself and you will finally feel free. But here is the part that matters. The knot is not out there. It is in your own hands, and you are the one pulling it tighter every time you return to the same question. There is an old exercise that might help. Take one memory, just one, that keeps coming back. Maybe it is the last conversation you had, or the moment you realized something had changed, or the message you sent that was never answered. Now ask yourself, what am I hoping to find by going over this again? Not in a judgmental way, but honestly. Are you hoping to discover a mistake you can fix? Are you hoping to feel less ashamed, or less confused, or less small? And then ask, has thinking about this over and over brought me any closer to that feeling? If the answer is no, then you have learned something important. You have learned that the mind can rehearse the same scene 1,000 times and never arrive at peace. Peace comes from somewhere else. It comes from the decision to stop rehearsing. This does not mean you pretend nothing happened. It does not mean you tell yourself the person did not matter, or that you are fine when you are not. It means you stop waiting for them to hand you the last page of the story. You write it yourself. Not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with quiet honesty. You say, this person left without explaining, and I will never know why, and I am going to live my life anyway. You say, I deserved better, and I did not get it, and that does not mean I am broken. You say, I release this person from the job of making me feel whole, because that was never their job to begin with. That is what moving on without closure looks like. It is not dramatic. It is not satisfying in the way a resolution would be. But it is yours, and it is real, and it lets you sleep. My colleague did not change overnight. But she did something small that surprised me. She took the last message she had written to the friend, the one she had never sent, and she printed it out. Then she folded it in half and put it in a drawer. She said, I am keeping it, but I am not sending it. I am letting it be finished even though it is not perfect. And that was enough. She stopped waking up at 3 in the morning. She stopped rehearsing. She still felt sad sometimes, but the sadness was lighter, because it was no longer tangled with the need to understand. If you have a notebook beside your bed tonight with 3 unfinished plans, maybe one of them is not really a plan at all. Maybe it is a wish that someone would come back and explain themselves, or apologize, or notice what they took from you. And maybe you can cross it off not because you finished it, but because you decided it does not belong to you anymore. You can let someone go without their permission. You can heal without their apology. You can close the chapter even when the last sentence is missing, because you are the one holding the pen, and you are allowed to write the words the end whenever you are ready. Old wisdom would say that freedom is not the absence of pain, but the refusal to be controlled by it. You cannot control what someone else did or did not say. But you can control whether you spend the rest of your life waiting in the silence, or whether you walk forward into your own noise, your own days, your own small and steady plans. That is the real work of letting go. Not forgetting, not forgiving too soon, but simply deciding that you will not give the past more of your future than it has already taken. So tonight, let the notebook stay open if it needs to. Let the plans sit unfinished if that is where they are. But do not let the silence of someone else become the loudest thing in your room. You are here, breathing, thinking, capable of more than you know. And the story you are writing now, the one without their voice in it, is still worth finishing. Close your eyes. Let your body rest. Let the question go unanswered, just for tonight. You do not need their closure to find your own quiet.